Start all. All right, are we live? Connect. Okay, we're good. All right. I've
Okay. So, so I I want to set a structure here, right? So, I'm going to ask you a couple questions, right?
mhm.
So, one thing, you want to have a hard out at 3 o'clock your time for the
Yes,
stream to end,
yes,
right?
I do.
And you want me to act as your assistant in the process of the stream we're doing today.
Yes, I would love that. I like that word for it too.
Yes.
That's cool.
Okay.
Ooh, we should always have that. We have a
Right.
facilitator and an
So.
assistant. Mhm.
Mhm. Well, technically, I have the word that I like to use, which is minder. I'm going to mind your intentions and attention for you
Mhm.
while you are going into flow states, basically,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So,
Oh, we could
right.
also. I was just think.
So,
I was thinking like the
go ahead.
relationship between a professor and an assistant professor. That's actually pretty good
Hmm.
because professor just means is profess. I was like, well, that must mean it is. It's just declare publicly.
Right.
Ah,
Yes.
ah, ah.
Yeah.
And the etymology
Um,
of declare is also good. Hold on, let me just read that out. Hold on, I want to recheck it because um,
mhm.
so it means clear. It means to make clear, and D is thoroughly. It's to make something thoroughly clear. Isn't that great?
That is great.
Yeah. So
So,
Professor Jane. Ha ha.
because yeah, so because the way our attention as autistic people is more specialized towards being able to dissociate from our context and put it out of mind, and thus use the part of our minds that runs and processes our attention for a smaller amount of inputs, right? This
Right.
allows us to work more efficiently or quote unquote better on the narrow thing that we're trying to think about, right?
Hmm.
And and because our mind is like that, we tend to do that. And that means all kinds of things that in a functionally normal human, right, doesn't get set at the wayside all the time,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And being able to narrow our focus in this hyper attentive way is very, very useful for being good at one thing. But
Mm-hmm.
what it means is that you need to externalize those other needs that you have
Yeah.
in that moment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You need to have assistance. To go to the metaphor, right? If we want you to chase butterflies as fast as you can, you need to put away your ballerina outfit
Hmm.
and your camping gear and
Hmm.
like all your other things, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then someone else could be the person watching you who's going to tell you if you hurt yourself
Yes.
while running chasing butterflies
Yes.
so that you don't have to pay attention to it for you,
Right.
for yourself, right?
Right, 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 right. And if something can be incorporated into a model that then we can pay attention to that model, we can take
Mhm.
in those factors, but only if and only if it can be incorporated into a model. Therefore, that's like, let's say we don't want to hurt ourselves chasing butterflies. Well, then moving
Mhm.
into the model of like uh, motor neurons, which act independently
Mhm.
of all of these other things we're doing, which is great, which is why autistic
Mhm.
people probably are performing better. You just hit something really important.
Right.
Once they do basic physical therapy, autistic people who have
Mhm.
severe disabilities, including severe movement disabilities, perform better in the things that they're going to speech therapy for if you give them basic physical therapy that you would give to anybody who's recovering from an injury. So this is a really interesting thing to note is that some of our issues can be taken care of by other systems that are intact if and
Mhm.
only if we incorporate that all into a model of the self. If we know that is part of it, if we experience those cells working,
Right.
yeah, which I've gotten to do as a dancer, which is why I'm so passionate about, okay, the things autistic people need to do is express themselves physically. And that doesn't have to be large motor groups, but honestly, it would be better if it was.
Mhm.
But yeah.
So, just to sort of recontextualize ourselves back to what I was saying, is that if you are going to be using your hyper focused vision to cognitive factor in this space, then you want, should, quote unquote, need somebody else
Mm-hmm.
to take on the role of
Yes.
being unfocused and looking at the broader things
Yeah. Yeah.
that you want and have put out of mind, right?
Right, because
And
they can't be
so
folded into the model I'm working on. That doesn't, you can't
they
always do that. Yeah.
cannot. It's
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
impossible,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And when we try to do it, it causes like multiple different types of bad outcomes, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It causes us to do worse at their hyper focused goal. It causes us, well, we most often, almost always fail to
Yes.
also pay attention to the other thing
Yes.
anyway. It
Yes.
causes us additional stress to be
Yes.
trying to do it. Our
Yes.
failure causes our self worth to drop and
Yes.
additional layers of distress, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like in multiple compounding
Oh,
ways,
oh, and it
right?
damages our sense of recursiveness about ourselves because we don't know how we're
Mm,
doing the amazing thing when we do it, and then we try to do it
yes,
again, and the approach itself is not recursive, it's violent, but we don't realize that because all the information we get back
right,
recursively from the world is that this other model
right,
that has never made sense is how we should view this situation, which leaves us being something that doesn't make sense. Like we ourselves are
right.
the thing that must be breaking time and space and
And
physics.
and in fact, I think it is accurate to say that like every thing that caused you or I to have marked improvements in our lives and our functioning has simply been learning more about ourselves
Yes.
and how we
Yes.
actually are
Right. Correct.
every
Exactly.
single time, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So even this thing I'm saying, where we describe to ourselves how we're actually functioning, which is an extrapolation from the concept of monotropism. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I see that idea. It makes vague sense. Like, I think we are vaguely the shape this is pointing out. So I started to think, what shape are we actually? Because I could tell this isn't the actual full picture, right? And
Yeah.
so what I've realized is one, that thing about attention is that dissociation is a thing that all humans are doing to various degrees at all times,
Right.
right? You are not constantly equally aware of every sensation and every simulation that your brain is holding or running, right? And so it makes sense that the way attention works is by taking things out of what you're aware of, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's how this thing called monotropism, that's how,
That's
right,
yeah. Yes.
is
All.
by leaving a smaller amount of reality
Yes.
within the part of your brain that is
Yes.
examining reality,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
And
so,
mhm, go ahead.
additionally, right, when you need more capacity to process reality, you do things like close your eyes, you do things like disassociate from your body
Mm-hmm.
and what interoception you do have about your bodily needs, right? You
Mm-hmm.
disassociate from those as well. That's why when you come out of hyper focus, all of a sudden you realize you're having extreme hunger pains, right? It's not that you weren't hungry up until then. It's that you were dissociated from that. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna walk that back slightly and to say
Of
that
course. Yeah.
here's what I think could be happening is that people who
Mhm.
have global configurational reasoning have an ongoing check of their own body because their body moving through space has become very important and understandable data. For us, it's not because the body moving through space only makes sense within the context of the space being fleshed out by your grid cells. Okay, so we don't
Mhm.
experience our body as this thing moving through space, and they would also have all of these reward pathways that then allow them to make metaphors about moving through space and they're on a journey and there's the destination and all that. So what could be happening is they are running a check in with themselves moving through spaces all the time. Whereas we are building models. It's not that we're dissociating. We are
Mhm.
holding models in our head. And that's why I can be like, why don't you guys notice this issue in society? Why don't you? I said this once to a therapist, like, I don't understand why
Mhm.
people don't walk outside and simply scream at the sky. Like, how do they forget
Mhm.
about this? And then they're looking at me like, how did you forget about your appointment? How did you forget about
So
our relationship?
I think I think what you're describing and what I had just described are two different things that are both true about reality,
Right, right, right.
right?
Explain yours
Right.
again.
So like as autistic people, because we don't have what they have in the ways we're making up for it,
Hmm.
we do more modeling. We do pretty much exclusively modeling, while
Right.
they do some modeling, some
Well,
their other navigational
well, I'm going
systems,
to argue,
right?
like, but what if we said that, like, the amount of attention that they're able to give to modeling, um, okay, hold on, modeling themselves through
I guess
space is the exact same amount of, or almost the exact same amount of attention that we're giving to
so.
the models of reality.
Sure, that makes sense, right? Because we can't make a model of space literally using a sense that we don't have,
Right. So
right?
then, is it fair to say
So
that
we
we're
have to make models
dissociated?
in a different way.
Is it fair to say that we're
So
dissociated? You know what I mean? When we're aren't we in the reality that we observe?
no, so Jane, there's a whole different thing where normally you would be aware of the fact that you're in extreme hunger, but your mind stops noticing those feelings, right?
Well, but no. What if our feeling of extreme hunger isn't even extreme hunger? So this is what I'm going to argue: is that maybe the only way that you can ever have what they call extreme hunger is by modeling yourself moving through space. That we've never even had those things. That when we notice hunger,
Oh.
yeah, that we don't even
Mhm. No,
process that.
so I don't say I say like I don't understand why that would possibly be true.
Okay, what if hunger, all right, it requires you to understand yourself moving through space, because the only way for you to interpret that signals, hunger is just that you're using up metabolic energy and you have some stomach gurgling, all this stuff. What if that really doesn't signal properly unless you have a sense of how long you've been moving through space, with how much effort, with
Oh, I
how much
see.
stress?
You're saying
So
that it's tied to having a model of
yes,
time,
because why do you
basically.
have
It's
autistic
tied to a
people with
time model.
why do you have people autistic people with quote unquote eating disorders? You have us with binge eating, you have us with anorexia,
Mhm.
supposedly. What if that's not binge eating? What if that's not anorexia? What if for us, like I used to think like, man, I don't feel hungry very often. And what if it's simply that in order to develop the thing that we call hunger, it's not very realistic for us to ever do that, and that the senses of internal checks on the body in an autistic person are
Right,
fundamentally different, so that we're not disassociated from our body.
right.
We are.
Because
Yeah, go ahead.
because
Yeah,
the way that like brains are, right, like I understand it through my understanding of computer neural networks and what
sure.
they've tried to copy from us, right?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
the plasticity of the brain means that the systems that our brain is running for even the most basic things,
Yeah,
they didn't like we weren't born with them. They grew, they emerged,
yeah.
right? From what our body needed or whatever. And so whatever way that our brain is interpreting whatever signals we get from the stomach up to the brain can be fundamentally different because our grid cells don't work,
Right,
right?
right. Exactly, exactly. So then,
Okay, that
so
makes
then, yeah, yeah,
sense.
yeah. So then we
And
get
then
to.
the idea is like you
Go ahead.
come out of hyper focus and suddenly your model incorporates time to some degree. And while you were in hyper focus, it wasn't at all. And so you weren't noticing the hunger or
Well,
whatever,
here's
right?
here's my question about that. So, and here's where, like, this is what I want to explore. If
Mm.
we get out of hyper focus, right? And I think of this as like
Oh,
building one model that's physically in front of us, while simultaneously building the model that's not physically in front of us but is built out of stuff that used to be physically in front of us, because that's how you learn any concept whatsoever. You have to be actually exposed to the concept.
mhm,
So we're able to
mhm,
hold all of that, and we're doing that work. Then when we finish our work on that model, that object for the time being, the anchor, and then we try to find a new anchor, it may be extremely challenging to do that unless the previous anchor has inferred to us where the next anchor that we can go to or should go to is. And if somebody pulls us around on their schedule, it's not going to match that. So you see what I'm saying? So it's like, so how am I going to jump to another safe anchor? If it's something that I've worked on for a very long time, I know it's extremely recursive. I know it's kind of like an island that I can rest on. Maybe I can jump to that island and then look at that. But it's not that I'm exiting hyperfocus. It's more that my state without engaging my focus in this specific way is back to the baseline of autistics are perpetually lost because we are not processing visual spatial information. So it's not I'm hyper focused and then I'm dissociated. It's I'm using my brain to compensate for my autism and I'm not using that part and now I'm very disabled.
So I think there might be just like a linguistic thing going on with the word dissociated and the meaning I have in mind.
Tell me what it is.
Communicating between
yes, please,
us,
please. Yes.
Where when I talk, so like if you can notice a thing sometimes, and at another point in time, when you could theoretically, like you still have the capacity to notice it, but aren't utilizing that capacity to notice it. Like that is dissociation to me.
So,
right?
And here's, I'd be okay, so using the capacity, not, no, wait, hold on. Okay, so you have you're saying, you're arguing that you have a capacity to notice something and you're not using it?
Right. So let's say, so I have a capacity to notice that I am depressed and feel super terrible, suicidal, right?
Right.
In the past, theoretically. And if I choose to not utilize that capacity to be aware of that, right? If I use escapism or something else to move my focus away, this is called dissociation, right? Whether you go into your head or whatever, right? Like dissociation is used in different ways, even in medical context.
Well, what if an autistic brain can't dissociate because that's an allistic property, whatever they're describing? And because here's the thing I would argue to that, which may be entirely possible and would give us a lot more credit. So what if the thing that you're not able to focus on versus the thing that you are able to focus on is coming from your brain telling you that this object has the information that will help you in the long run more than that object? That even if you're, let's say you're stressed about the thing, right? And you say that you're doing escapism with the video game, but your brain says this video game is actually helping me work on some part of this problem. Even if you may be incorrect.
So you're not even saying that you simply switch the object that you pay attention to, but rather that this object is somehow being treated as like a solution, potential solution to the problem?
And the problem specifically then would be building the correct model. So I'm saying it's possible that autistics will reject almost all objects unless they believe it's useful for building the model. So if you do go to a video game, for some reason, your brain may be convinced, and I think it's more likely that it is, that this game is helping you to build the model that is currently not built, that is causing you problems.
Or at very least, right, the things that we go to when we want to move away to quote unquote dissociate or whatever, the things we go to for escapism, the ones we choose specifically are going to be in the categories of things that, like you're saying, we think have recursive value towards the problem.
Yeah. Hold on a second. I'm going to echo for a second.
Mute one of your.
Give me a sec because I have to switch over.
Okay. Take a second. Jane is taking a second. Jane is taking a second to switch a thing over. That's what's happening now. That's what's happening now. Shadow's off in the pantry, organizing her pantry. That's what's happening now.
I don't think
Yeah,
you
that's
saw my
what's
picture,
happening
but I
now.
did it already.
Oh, it's already done. What are you up to? What's are you housekeeping something else, Shadow?
Yes. So with brass instruments, you literally bathe them. So
Hmm.
finishing that currently.
I am
Okay, I'm checking that
housekeeping
I'm back.
nothing.
Hold on.
Mhm.
1 sec. Okay, I have to mute that one. Okay,
Uh-huh.
I think I should be good. Yeah, I'm good. Okay, so let me rewind that. God, it was such a good point. Oh, okay, so you're looking at the thing solving problem. Oh, shit. I was almost there.
Oh, I was pointing out, like, if we're going to a different object to
Mhm.
solve the problem object that is making us feel bad, because that's what the problem is right? Bad states. Then even if we don't actively believe the video game or book that we go to is going to definitely solve the problem, it is going to
Right.
be one of the categories that we value
Yes.
because of its relation to the problem, right? Like I would go to books, like fantasy books and video games, because I knew that at least through these things I could connect to other people more successfully, right?
Well, and that okay, so that yes, and so I think what's happening is like we're noticing something is having a very low recursiveness, and we're trying to regain our sense of
Right.
high recursiveness. So if this
Mhm.
game has any ways that it's
Oh,
proven that
probability
it
comes
has
in,
high,
right?
yeah,
No, so it's that this has the highest probability of helping solve
yes,
the
yes,
problem. We don't
yes,
have to
exactly,
have, right, our confidence level that it will solve the problem could be
yep,
0.001%, but as long as it's the highest confidence level we have that this will solve the problem, that's what we go to.
exactly.
That makes sense to me.
Good at stats and math and whatever, and you'll see us overperforming in those if you test us well. It's that we're saying, okay, well, I need to know how likely I know, and you'll hear autistic people talk this way prior to diagnosis as adults because it has to get solidified what you're doing, or else it's quite confusing to persist in it out loud, and that's not going to work because you have to be able to at some point talk to yourself and feel that you make
Right.
sense. So
So the
yeah,
point you were
so I
trying to
think
get to
that's correct.
earlier, I think, Jane, was probably that rather than talking about disassociate, what we're doing is shifting through different models at different layers of breadth, right? Or through different layers of abstraction, up and down, right? We're shifting from a model that includes our environment and bodies to a model that doesn't include that at the moment, so we can just work on the model of the one concept we're cognifacturing. Is that sort of what you were getting at?
Yes, that's exactly right. So then we don't have to think that we're dissociated because we're not. We're just saying that like,
Right.
okay, I need to always be modeling. And I was saying if you want to get an autistic person off of something, you have to prove better recursiveness, which is better confidence, which is a recursive thing will provide you with a better confidence level than a non-recursive thing. That's just like an easy thing to say to anybody in a statistical uh, uh,
Mm.
basics 101
Mhm.
sort of application. It could be stats, could be whatever. So that's what we're doing, and we never stop doing it.
Right.
Probably when we're sleeping, we're doing it, and that is creating a thing where other people think that we're going to go off and like we're mind wandering or we're doing no, we're scanning for the thing we can see, which makes a ton of sense. So everybody's always scanning for perceptual information that's new, relevant, or that they can complete,
Mhm.
that they can finish. We also have an urge to finish, but it gets frustrated a lot and people don't understand we're trying to finish something and it actually is important.
Right.
So
And
yeah, so that
because we
yeah.
don't have grid cells because we can't properly form global configurational data relationships in our memory because we can't model visual, spatial, temporal information except extremely poorly and with difficulty. The thing that we put our attention to focus on, that we model, are models of the world, right? Conceptual models, right? We can also focus on our visual, spatial, temporal models, but we don't because it's so inefficient and has low confidence levels, and we're not able to make it useful, right? Because of our grid cells, right?
Yes, exactly. And we can't do it. It's never going to be, oh, that was the thing. Like the idea of somebody, they're not really planning, they're doing another aspect of global configurational XY activity.
Right. So they're traveling, right? Or they're doing that thing that you
ourselves to do something we can't do. Yes.
Oh, you're cutting out a little bit,
absolutely.
Jane. But yeah, so they're
doing too much.
Right. They're traveling, they're navigating, they're doing the thing that you do to prepare to travel and navigate, right? This is the thing they're doing, right? They're doing
look ahead. They're doing look ahead.
Right, a look ahead, a look around, right? So they look ahead, they're like, oh, ahead isn't available, so I look to the side. Now I assign the side as ahead, then I walk ahead, right? So when they say like the thing they're doing where they're keeping so much stuff within context, it is within this navigational context. When they talk about a plan, they're talking about their look ahead for the steps they take as they travel through time and space.
And it's all embodied because every time that they think about themselves doing a thing, it's themselves moving through time and space. And oh man, I reread my eval of being a 6-year-old. God, it's so heartbreaking. Now that I've had more time to learn about the ins and outs of autism, God, it really was everywhere. It's so sad. Anyways, that just reminded me of that because there were aspects of that in that as well. Can I run through the notes that I took really quickly because it's all on topic to what we're doing, but is this an okay place to do that?
I mean, yeah, go for it.
Okay. So, all right, I'm going to try to just blaze through them. So if notes can be taken and then we can hit what we want to hit. So one thing that I wrote some things in quotations because the person leading this is not autistic. So he was talking about how they were having interpersonal issues, and he gave examples of like, what would you think in this situation? One of them was you were broken down on the highway and a friend made eye contact with you and sped away. One of them was something that you contact you've done it for 6 years for your birthday. You contact them for theirs. They didn't contact you. What would you think? And I was like, I can't do that. And then the last one was, something that you would find really embarrassing and humiliating happened, and like you see 3 of your friends laugh shortly after it occurred. What would you think? So all these things were like people I know. I'm like, this is very interesting. And then he mentioned like the friend driving by being like thinking you're one more thing demanding my attention and feeling angry. I'm like, that is fascinating. And that speaks to my belief that the focus reward towards the finish line, when somebody's not allowed to get that focus and reward, the response is anger because it's a quick drop away from enjoyable.
Which person would feel angry? The one that drove away or the one on the side of the road?
The one on the side of the road.
It would feel angry because why?
Because the friend or even either one could, I suppose.
Right.
The friend coming in when they already had a lot going on would be one more thing demanding their attention, which to me says like demanding me to follow you towards something.
Right. How is that demanding their attention? Right. Like if this happened, I would be confused because I don't know what possible context could have caused my friend to act in that manner, because I would have predicted that they would stop and help me. Right. So I would be confused. right?
Yeah, it wouldn't really contribute to my current situation. It would just be like, well, I'll have to figure out what that was later because that was very odd.
Yeah,
You know, and like
that's
I
odd,
listed
right?
some of my thoughts, and they thought some of my thoughts were weird, but they were contextually based. I was like, okay, I would think that like, okay, maybe my friend like knows me very well, assumes that my phone is dead, and is driving somewhere to get help and to come back,
Right.
right? So that
Like
could be, or
the
okay.
fact that the person didn't even say that they would be angry that their friend could have stopped and chose not to, right? Like that I could understand being angry about, but that
You
they're
don't know.
angry for because
Yeah.
that person is now something else to track is bewildering to me to hear that.
Right. Well, that's like that now makes sense of this Taoist thing that I heard once, where this guy is like, it's in the Tao. I don't know. It's one chapter of it. This monk carries a woman across the river, and they're not supposed to carry or touch women. And he carries her across the river and then sets her down. And this is like this wise monk, and then the like acolyte monk student guy is like, why did you carry that woman? We're not supposed to touch women. He's like, I only carried her across the lake. You've been carrying her all this time. But like
Right.
this idea of like, yeah, so and I was like, why would you be angry about your attention moving in that instance in that way? And I was like, oh, because I think for them it's interrupting the finish line, etc. And I was saying like, I would be angry if if I was trying to analyze something and it was really important, and then somebody
Hmm.
insisted that I paid attention to them, because I will ignore them.
Right.
I will
Right.
100%. I'll be like, junk data, boom. I'll, like when it's logged, if it needs to be relevant later, but I've also logged it with a confidence level, like of how likely it is to be relevant later. And then I said, like maybe something's wrong with my friend. Maybe my friend is having some type of psychological episode and I
Sure.
should check with them. And then the
Right.
last thing I said, because I've seen it in movies, is it might be the end of the world. And they thought I was catastrophizing or something. I was like, no, because how
No,
many
you're
things
just
have I
saying,
seen that look like that?
yeah. Yeah.
And then I was like, well, when I get out of here, my instinct would be to go whichever direction my friend is going, just in case.
It's also sort of interesting that like this is a theoretical where you see your friend meet your eyes, because as an
Yeah.
autistic person, that's not a thing that is going to happen to me almost ever, because I don't look at my friend's eyes, right? So
Yeah.
I don't usually know what they're looking at, right?
Right. And so that was one thing. And and I said,
Oh,
it's
right. Sorry,
for
you
us,
talked
go
about
ahead.
you talked about what will get you irritated about being interrupted, right? And
Right.
and
If
so
somebody
like
insists that I can't work
like
on my model and I have to work on their dumb shit.
right. So I have this idea about like PDA as a sort of like traumatic response and encodification of the fact that whenever somebody asks you of something, what they're asking you for is going to be nonsense. And so you're
Right.
just in the habit of automatically getting angry anytime
Right.
someone else asks your attention to go
And you
anywhere.
can't say
Right?
no in a way that
Right,
anybody
right. And you
respects. So
can't
it
say
also
no.
yeah.
Right. Right.
Yep.
It's this reaction to the fact that your whole life, your attention has been forced away from what you care about and onto literal nonsense that shouldn't be done by anybody, let alone you. Right?
What you care about is based on what can be seen, and their stuff is clearly based on not being able to see that stuff. So it's like, no, I'm not going to say that your crap that you threw together because you were playing word association and telephone with a bunch of people is the same thing as what I need to do to survive. Like it's like
Yeah.
it's insulting. So we're angry too because we're offended.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, and then you can get the autistic people that people are saying, oh, they're so stuck up. I'm like, no, this is offensive. This is the only way we can get around. I'm not going to run around saying that I can put on makeup with my feet the same way as this girl who was born without arms can do, because that's insane. That's insane. And that's what people are saying to us on some level. And okay, so let me pop through the rest of this. Okay. So I was saying also, like, if we saw the person driving by, that wouldn't make us angry. We would more likely would be afraid or overwhelmed, where it's like, oh no, there's another thing going on. There's more information. Do I need to figure this out right now? And if the answer is no, it'll still be like, well, shoot, I'm going to have to try to figure that out at another point. And we might simply forget. We might even be stressed out about, like, do I need to remember that? Like, that's more the issue. of like, I need to solve a problem right now that I'm not good at solving. And maybe I can solve the issue with my friend. In fact, I might be more attracted to trying to figure out the issue with my friend, because what if they are having like a manic episode? I've had friends with manic episodes. I have some experience with that. I can
Right.
kind of work through that. I can't really
Right,
do global configuration where I'm
is there
stuck on
an
the side of the road on a tiny
emergency,
boat and
right?
then I can get killed. Yeah,
Are they
yeah,
on the run, right? Like another thing from movies
right,
is like, oh my God, is somebody coming to kill them or something, right?
right, exactly.
Right,
So then,
and in
okay,
fact, that would be a bad one because then your attention would be required. You'd be like, oh, I need to watch this road now in case there's someone who comes by who looks like they might be trying to murder my friend. And then I
right,
would be
and
interrupted.
yep, and so okay, so for autistic people, recursiveness. Okay, so I'll try to get through all these notes because they're a little bit spiraling out, and then they'll be done. Then we can pick through them. So I was saying, like, well, instead of his model of saying like, oh, like checking facts, and then I'll get into that later. But I was like, well, basically, you should be checking your social reality versus the like confidence level that you have, and if you should have that confidence, like you should be asking like, have you measured things correctly? Not like, are my like checking the facts because I don't like my feelings. Your feelings happen because you had a different set of facts that you thought were true, and you're maybe upset that there's suddenly a reason for you to have to learn that gets into, Jamie asked a question about cognitive dissonance in the chat. So that's that. You may be upset that you have to do metabolic effort when you weren't. For autistic people, I don't think broadly speaking we are. We may be not doing great when we lost, and we know that there's some people that can try to hurt us, and that's not wrong, by the way. So we may be overwhelmed and afraid, but we're not frustrated by the situation. And also, we're not worried about our facts being wrong. We already know that facts are just a collected set of experiences that you then put into some sort of a context that we call a model. Okay, so no problem there. And then, okay, I'm gonna blaze through these. So I was like saying, well, what you should do if an autistic person's stuck is to ask them, like, do I really have to analyze this model specifically? And sometimes, yes, because, and this is, I said, my problems aren't interpersonal stuff, it's people in groups. And the internet is hellish because I see people doing stupid things, and the stupidity rate is increasing exponentially as they continue to talk to each other, and they won't stop talking to each other, right? So I'm like, so I start being like, do I have to analyze this, because how bad is this going to get? And he was saying to me, it's like, he's trying to be like, well, are these people stupid? I'm like, well, the behaviors are stupid, or they at least, I was like, I mean, and then he was saying like maybe the behaviors seem stupid. I'm like, I'm pretty sure they're stupid. Like they don't make sense. They're incoherent. So how likely
Right.
is it that a bunch of incoherent behaviors are going to create a serious problem? It gets more and more likely, actually, the more people you have.
Right.
Because
And it's like
the people are going, yeah.
There's a quick issue there you're running into because of the word stupid, right? And so what you're saying
Right.
is like, if stupid is an action, if it's stupid is a way of doing things, then yes, these are people who are being stupid, right?
Right.
Compared to the way stupid is normally used. Yeah, you could go ahead.
And he said something about like he said like not needing your model to fit people. I was like, oh no. I was like, I don't need my model to fit people. I need the model that fits people. I'm looking for the model. I'm not worried if my model fits the people. I don't need my model to fit the people. That's not my concern. That's
Right.
not what I want at all.
And
That's
so
the inverse.
you're describing you're describing sort of that holistic people in general have a very different relationship with facts than than autistic people in general. Holistic autistic, very different relationship, right? And this explains a lot of their behaviors is because they have a relationship to facts where they are things that should stay permanent. And so they get upset when their facts, their reality is threatened or damaged by your actions.
Well, it's yeah, because it's like, it's like the sunk cost fallacy is sort of a little bit maybe alluding to that too. So they're saying that like, I need my model to fit people is what he said, and I was like, well, no, I need to find the model that fits people. I need to.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to do, and then know how
sorry,
likely it is versus other models that's the correct one.
What I should have described is that like the relationship that you and I have to facts, to models, right, is a scientific one, that they are constantly being checked, updated, thrown out, rejected, replaced, worked on, and so on, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
you
Yes.
could even
Yes.
say it's a growth mindset, right? And they have a
Yes.
model of facts where facts are facts. And once you learn a fact, you're done, right? And you shouldn't have to interact with facts. And if a fact has changed, something's wrong with reality, because it's as if the map has changed, as if the landscape of reality is changing, because they think that facts are terrain, right?
Yes.
A
Well,
canyon doesn't just move, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, they
Right.
think so. Yes, yes, you're right. But also that they think that they're moving through space. So this is a fundamentally dynamic thing that they are doing when they have a self-concept of themselves. It is a thing that moves through space. And it is a thing that moves to a destination continuously, destination after destination. If the destinations are not continuous and they get disjointed, they call that ADHD. If the destination isn't real, they call that like schizophrenia. So, or something like that, like a delusional disorder or a psychotic episode. So the person is trying to take the steps that they already were taking, because the reward happens better and more. You get more focus, more reward as you walk through these steps. And the person that has that way of thinking also can justify their steps in real time that they've already done by looking at the points and trying to make the data fit their model. This is why people can't use stats. So they already are going to the finish line. And then even when it looks like they're getting hurt or something's going wrong, now they're going to cherry pick data to try to confirm that what they've already done is correct, because otherwise they're going to interrupt that reward cycle, that focus, reward, focus, reward, focus, reward. And that in and of itself is the reward. So getting to continue that process is the reward.
Right. And so they are modeling themselves fundamentally as a thing that is taking steps, right?
Yes.
And so, so anything that interrupts the step they were about to take or prevents them from taking steps, they get upset at, right?
Right.
And so if you say, hey, your map is wrong while they're in the middle of traveling using the map, they get upset, right? If
because
they
they're using that to regulate themselves.
They're using it, right? They are constantly using their map of reality. They're constantly, and when we say using, it's like this complicated thing, right?
Yeah, it's not
like
just the map. It's them mentally walking across it, even.
Right, and they don't even think of it as a map. They think of it as reality, or even something more fundamental, right? Like they don't even have the thought that this is reality. They simply embody themselves within it.
Right. And it probably feels real in a recursive way because they keep moving, and there's all the proof that you need their model is correct, because in the model they move and they keep moving. So that must feel like a powerful indicator that their confidence level should be high in their model, simply because they experience moving feels good, and in their model, they're moving. So therefore, it's like it could just be a simple thing of it's so intoxicating to get all of your regulation from this.
So it's recursive. It's extremely recursive. It's a very simple recursive model as well, right? It is a model where you will be moving, and if you're not moving, something's wrong. And if you are moving, then you feel good. You would.
Yes, you would
because it's a process to move, right?
This is money. This is wealth. This is billionaires. This is why they're sick. This is why they're sick.
This is why they're sick. This is why they can't say I have. That's why the concept of having enough money doesn't make sense, because getting money is taking steps. They don't want to arrive somewhere. They want to be arriving. They want to be traveling to arrive at all times. They don't want to build a state for them to then embody. They want to go.
And that's why mania is seen as such a positive in our society, because that is a manic state. Just go, build. That's a manic hyper-associative state, actually. Like they say we're hyper-associative. No, they're hyper-associating everything with the line that they were already on. So if somebody's manic, they will feel invincible because everything is conspiring to help them. They're in a state of that.
and psychopathy type actions, right? Psychopathy type being allows you to disregard social reality barriers to continue taking steps and arriving more often and more successfully.
Right, right. And this gets complicated too. I'll note this for like if somebody has like a paranoid sorts of behavior, that's still very high arousal. So like these, I think high arousal is really this mobility thing. Perhaps is well, we might need new models entirely on that. But for us, it's like this is why we appear more depressive. But I wouldn't say that we are. I say what's happening is like if you tell me like what's the feeling that is the most distressing for me, it's the frustration. It's like I work at a pace, I work better at a pace. My brain fires fast, so it's not anything about that. But I work better at a pace in a way that allows me to work according to the logic of the thing I am working on. And when that is not happening because somebody is getting their hit and they need to take this next step right now, or it's going to get interrupted. They're not going to get the focus, reward. So that might even be a sense of time in and of itself. Is just if I don't move soon enough, I'm going to not get my reward. And I'm like, I need to move at the pace of this object. And this is a distinguishing feature of humans, which is again why you can say, why are the autistics occasionally clocked if people are being nice about us as very intelligent? Oh, they're doing this thing that we associate as humans inventing and making tools, because you have to work with the logic of the tool. You can't, fudge it.
Right. So you and I, we are getting rewards when we make progress in our own methodology of building, of modeling, right? So when we have a realization, when we have like a moment of clarity, we feel a high reward feeling because our model of reality just became more reliable, more
valuable. Important.
Valuable.
And this is our concept of importance, which isn't like their concept of importance.
So their concept of importance is about taking steps and traveling, and ours is about building and modeling reality and tools with which to interact with reality. Theirs is about traveling through reality. Right.
And if you talk to somebody who's trained, so like for example, the person leading the group could still relate to the examples I was giving because he's trained in psychology. So he has a degree in psychology.
And of course,
you can train people to do this.
Especially because we're streaming. When I say us and them, I'm just saying like Jane and I specifically, the types of autistics like Jane and I, and then autistic people in general, not necessarily everyone. Right.
No, exactly. And that it's the way I think of it, so people don't get confused on this too, is that like autistic people are missing cake ingredients. So we come out like, and you can make a flourless chocolate cake, right? Yeah. So we're flourless chocolate cakes. We managed to make something that's like a cake, but it doesn't behave like the other cakes, but it has things that are in common with the cakes. But you can't make a flourless chocolate cake with flour. So the way that we're doing it, it's just we had to do this exclusively so it looks different, and it's not, there's no superiority here. First of all, even if we wanted to play that game, we suck in society. Real good at school sometimes, and sometimes real bad at school. It doesn't really buffer us against a world that doesn't use this as the primary driver of interactions. So
did you get through your whole list of notes?
No, I did not. let me pull through. So
you go ahead and continue. Yeah.
Okay, let me just scan through this 1 second. Model. Okay, got that part. Hold on. Okay, got that part. Oh, black and white thinking. Let's see. Models I've yeah. So he said something like he mentioned models I've created for the world. I don't create models for the world. I test and apply models. I audition models. That's what I do. And I must always audition models. That is my only option because I do not have the ability to do the global configurational XY in order to create kind of a consolidated opinion about reality that then I will follow. Because even if I'm wrong, I can update my pretense to go along with everybody else. And we're all happy enough because we're still taking steps and reward, step reward, focus reward. And that's all of these hierarchies. That's why people will participate in these social games. even at the expense of their well-being, other people, etc. They are completely locked into their ability to take in this information and stay getting focus, reward, to cherry pick the data, to decide what matters and what doesn't matter, as long as they're still getting the reward. And this creates the pathology of the human species. And let's see, so there's that. Hold on. Yeah, so I don't create the models. I test and apply, and I audition models for testing and applying them to things to test them. And then black and white thinning. That point doesn't matter. Observe thoughts. Oh yeah, he said something about observing thoughts and changing emotions. That's completely wrong. You need to observe reality and then assess your last observation of reality. And if you made a poor guess and the emotions that you used to associate you with the guess that you made in the past that is now wrong, you just simply need to take in new information. You can label your emotions more accurately because this is a state that is referencing back to a state that you were in previously that gave you information about your body. So all of that, like the emotion thing, I'm going to get into that another time because I need to sit down and look at it. But they really keep saying like there's like a wise mind and then there's emotion mind. I'm like, oh God. Oh, you mean there's a man mind and a woman mind? What do you say? Oh yeah. So and then it even says like do the opposite of what you want to do. It's like oh wait, okay, no, maybe we do have to look at this and then I'll
wait, what? Oh no, wait, what?
It needs to be fixed. The model is bad. The model is no good. So
is this group taking the new members? Can I join this session after this?
Yeah, you might be able to. You would be great.
That'd be
let's
cool because I would be so interested in
Mm-hmm.
listening. Yeah. Do you have more notes?
Here's their flow chart. Yeah, they have a flow chart. Ask, does this emotion fit the facts? Yes or no? It's like it fits the facts that you thought were the facts, but are the facts the facts? You should be checking that. Like you had the emotion because you thought the facts are the ones that go with the emotion. Are the facts the facts that went with that emotion, or are they facts that are not facts that went with that emotion? So okay, so then you're still to say yes or no to that question. That is not a good question. Ask, is acting on this emotion effective?
It's just
I don't even know what that means.
Unless you have a very specific issue with your brain that is causing you to randomly generate different emotional states, any emotional state you go into is the emotional state that you have that answers the situation you think you're in, right? And it's possible that one, you think you're in a situation that doesn't match the situation you're in, or that you have a model for what emotional state to go into that isn't one that you've thought through logically and have for good reasons about your current state, but is ingrained in you because of past experiences and states you've been in, and you need to update, right? These are the possibilities, but you can't just accidentally go into the wrong emotional state, right?
No, it's not. Yeah, exactly. That's because that's what women do, right? Because they don't use enough of their logic brain. Yeah, right. Okay, so ask, is acting on this emotion effective? And you're supposed to do that for both the yes and the no. So, and then it goes like, there's 3 of them that say, do not act on an emotion, action, urge, consider opposite action, be mindful of current emotions, act, but accept consequences gracefully, reconsider opposite action, do not act on emotion, action, change thoughts to fit the facts, do opposite action. So I'm like, okay, so
the whole metaphor of acting on emotions, the concept of acting on emotions, like that's an emotion doesn't have a single action that automatically follows from it. And that if you do anything else, that's not acting on that emotion, right? Like if you become angry, there are still a vast array of things that you can do while being angry, because angry is a body state that your mind has put you into that will make you think and choose different ways to act than you would while not angry, right? It's an influencer, but it's not, yeah, sorry. What was the last line you had read?
I've also analyzed what anger is, and we can get into that today too. But like, I know what anger means because I sat and analyzed it, and I think I know what it's referring to. 99% of the time, maybe when it's being used, it's probably at least in part referring to this, if not much more. Okay, but I'll get into that another time. So anger, pin. Okay, so opposite action. Remember, use opposite action when your emotions do not and not is in bold and capitalized. Fit the facts or when acting on your emotion is not effective. Acting on your emotion is not effective. I have no, okay, we're just gonna leave that there. Okay, we'll just drop that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
every emotion has an action urge. Change the emotion by acting opposite to the action urge. That's nonsense. Every action does not, first of all, every emotion, that's not how emotion categories work. That's
Right.
not that, nope, we do not, the inside out thing is wrong. No.
Yeah.
And then why would it have an action urge? Like, what is this? This is freaking platonic essentialism. That's
Yes.
all that is.
Yeah.
And it's unprovable and probably, oh my god, it's
Oh.
unfalsifiable, but it's provably false.
So essentialism is linked into the relationship that we were describing them having with facts, right?
Right.
Because they exist
Exactly.
in a world of platonic ideals instead of the world of science, of observations and likelihoods, right?
Yes. And
There's
then even
right,
to act,
there is
I
no
take issue with
such
action urge as
thing.
a concept.
Oh, of course, but like there's no such thing as being fully 100% sure of anything under any circumstance, right?
Correct.
That's just not
Yes.
the nature of knowing, right?
And
And
thank goodness it's not.
yeah, and again, like you're saying, like way beyond being diagnosed, like from a very young age, I've been working on that idea, the concept that you can't be sure of things, right? And people are like,
Yep.
"What are you talking about? Either you know you did it or you didn't." And I'm like, "Well, that can't make sense." Yeah. Okay, you can continue.
No. Yep. Okay. So then, and then I don't think I'm gonna hit this. Maybe I'll hit the last one. I may hit their problem. They have a problem solving kind of like step by step, I suppose, is what it's supposed to be. It's like a circle that points to another circle. It's very weird. So I wouldn't call that a flow chart. But yeah, it's just like, I don't know what it is. It's probably just to be pretty. Okay, but step by step, opposite action. First of all, step by step, right? And then problem solving is also like a step by step thing, that it doesn't get labeled that way. So that's fascinating. Unless nope, that's a different thing entirely. Okay, so number one, identify and name the emotion that you want to change. Why do you want to change the emotion? You want to change the emotion? Look at a different set of things. You'll have a different emotion. You can run through emotions faster than you can say boo if you want to do it properly. I mean, that's okay. All right. Check the facts. See if your emotion is justified by the facts. Who cares? Just see if the facts are right. Why is your emotion that important? Like if the emotion cued you to check out the facts, great. Now just check out the facts and you'll have other emotions. How fun, how interesting, how completely nonstop and actually not remarkable whatsoever. You constantly are having this, yeah, okay, all right.
Right.
To see your own justified effect. Okay, check also whether the intensity and duration of the emotions fit the facts. Who the fuck knows? I mean, first of all, I think the intensity of the emotion that I have of like, if we're saying like fear is an emotion, they're going to call that an emotion. I actually am perceiving threats. I really am. And they're not great. And you know what's really not great? Perceiving the threats when you're just some ding dong streaming to the internet. You know what I mean? Who shouldn't be able to do this at all, and you're conscious of that, and it doesn't make sense, and there's other issues going on, and blah, blah, blah. Like that's a lot, but it's not wrong. It's just I'm conscious of how my confidence level is high that that's a situation, even though it's an unlikely situation. So that's a lot. That's stressful. So it's like, okay,
Right.
is my emotion fitting that?
You're talking about like the intensity and stuff, right? And we were talking about dissociating, but this more useful thing, I think, you pointed out, this like the curtailing of your model, right? So if I were to focus on the model of reality and the part of reality that points towards a horrible, cataclysmic, bad event for all of humanity in the near future, right? I would start to have emotional states of extremely high anxiety, stress, fear, despair, right? Like in this situation, if I were to think about that part, the correct response is to be screaming, because we're effectively like we're the person in the movie who's finding out that a comet's about to hit Earth, right? Like that's what we focused on. And at the same time,
go ahead.
Well, it's just we have control of our emotion by controlling what parts of reality we focus on in our modeling, right?
Yes, and I will accept an argument, and this I think you can get most autistic people to accept something like this argument, that one thing we get to be really, really upset about, because it's true, is we are clocking how big is this problem? Like
Yeah.
how bad is the actual problem based on how hard would it be to solve? And this
Mhm.
one is really hard. And when I see another
It is
group of people
really hard.
magically finding a new way to play a game of telephone into ruining everything, I'm like, oh my God,
Mhm.
it's even harder now. Wow, can you guys
Right.
like stop moving with your machete arms for 3 seconds? You're
Right.
making
Right.
it
And
worse.
the difficulty isn't in the hard science applications of ways to solve the physical problem that's happening to our planet. Right. The hard problem is the fact that humans are machete arm people that constantly cut pieces of themselves and each other off. And there's no way to simply tell them to stop doing and being that. Right. That's the problem.
Yes.
Right. And so
Yep.
that
Yep.
is a far harder problem than just the impending end of the world, which would be relatively easy. But it's the end of the world, and everybody on the planet has a level of zombie virus in them while the comet's coming at us. And so we can't just talk to them and work together to solve it, because I also have to figure out how to use words and concepts to cure people of zombie virus. Right?
Right. Well, and that's okay. But that's the part. So if you want to hook us and get us to feel better and also like probably more functional and able to deal with the world on our own terms with our brain, you say to them, yes, this is not looking so hot with what's
Mhm,
currently available. It's
mhm.
possible you yourself can help to invent the technology, and
Right.
technology means everything, including just
Yeah.
words organized in a fancy
Yeah.
way. You could be the technology, and when the technology is adopted, it will be the widget that fits the wadget, and the people do not have this
Yeah.
issue
Yeah.
eating them alive and potentially
Right.
coming over to eat you for a snack. So
Right.
that's
And
dope,
again,
and
like
that will help us.
that's why I don't despair, is because I think that
Yes.
you and I are actively creating a zombie vaccine, or we're working on it, and we could potentially create it, solve it. Right. The
And
problem
we're
can
making
be solved,
progress
and
quickly.
we're
Yeah.
making progress quickly. We're building tools that didn't exist, that people didn't even know ought exist. Right. And
Yep.
we're
Yep. Yep.
making
Yep. Yep.
real progress on it. Right.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. So then our confidence is going up, and it's like,
Yeah.
hey, and even if that doesn't work out, there's real meaning to our lives there. Like
Right.
that
Right.
pursuit
And these
is
tools
beyond worthwhile.
exist. Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
we
it's
don't need to
worthwhile in
justify
it.
it to people who don't get it.
And,
They'll thank us
right.
later if
And
it does work.
we don't even have to try to, right? And
No.
worthwhile, this is what we talk about, like the motivation, the reward. This is worthwhile too,
Mhm,
right? It's all mixed.
mhm, mhm,
So
mhm, mhm,
what
exactly.
we are doing, what we're talking about right now, these are our steps that we're taking, and we're getting the reward for it compared to what other
Yeah.
people are doing, because their model is wrong to solve this problem, because their model is the cause of this problem. Right.
Well, because it's exactly. The more they think they're
Their
solving,
model
this is
is
why I use the finger
literally
tab.
the problem. Right.
The
The
more they
thing
feel
they're
they're pulling with
using
all their effort, the
to
more stuck they
do,
are.
yeah, the
Yep.
thing that they're using to do anything ever is the problem that
Yes.
needs to be solved.
Oh, it makes
Yeah.
sense. And you know why that makes me feel good? Is like I had that was a way that I was outlining the model before I had this data. And I'm not cherry picking my data. I'm not. In
Right.
fact, I was like,
Right.
I'm actually grabbing my older models and checking them again, because so far I haven't needed to discard them. I'm like, do I need to discard it now? Oh, I don't. Excellent. Okay,
Mhm,
I get to test it again. It's gone through another phase of testing.
mhm.
That's why our confidence is going up. We're going through iterations of testing, and we're like, okay, it passed that as far as our standards, which we're also trying to raise our standards as
Right.
we go. And I understand that our standards can't be as high as if
Right.
we had these fancy academic people supporting us and we have the 8 degrees or something.
Of
But I
course,
accept that.
because
It doesn't matter. It's too
the
important of a
world
problem.
is what it is. We can't just magically have more resources, and we're the
Yeah.
ones that we can see actually making progress on this. So
Yes.
it doesn't. It's not useful to worry about counterfactuals that can't be
Mhm.
reached. We just do what we can with what we can access, right?
Right, exactly. And we may be able to get further access. For example, I'm thinking this is a really good example of the stream, right? And I can pass this on to people that I'm currently going to be talking to try to understand the networking side of autism, et cetera, and so forth, right? So, and this is beyond autism, but it hinges. I love that it hinges on autism. I love that it hinges on women, because it's just like, y'all were ignoring the best data. You guys, you didn't really want to know. Why didn't you really want to know? Because you were doing focus, reward, focus, reward, focus, reward, focus, reward, pull, 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 pull when it got bad,
Right.
you know? And okay, so all right, and let me finish the step-by-step
It's
opposite.
because it's because an accurate, functional, progress, making progress on a real model of reality that can actually fix the problems has to start by dismantling and clearing away all of these fake models, right?
Yes, support. So when I was 6 years old, I had my test done and I got to reread the test and I saw everything that they are messing up now, right? Where I should have been flagged for autism. They said I was exceptional at arithmetic, right? But they also said that I was making mistakes because I was working too quickly. Okay, so they knew that my processing speed was fast even back then. By the time they actually measure it, you can't measure it, I guess, as a 6-year-old, or they didn't care. I don't know. By the time they measure it when I'm in 7th grade, it's off the charts. Okay, so my processing speed was that fast then. They said that I made less mistakes when they instructed me to slow down, and that if I worked at my own pace, which was very fast, they said that I made mistakes and then they told me to go back and fix them. What they were telling me to do was take step, and I was running all over the place trying to figure out what the model is. If they had just let me finish, God damn it, I would have, and that's what I've done. Even the social avoiding on some level is just so people don't interrupt. Just let me finish. It doesn't make sense to you right now. I do not care. No, I'm not doing step A, B, C, D, E, F. Don't worry about it. There's something here that you guys don't even know how to do yet. And I taught myself how to write as a kid. I got people, my teachers being like, oh, did your mom write your paper? I'm like, no, is it better than your papers
Also,
right now, ma'am? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
This
My mom
test
is
you did, Jane.
master's. Yeah.
Did you have unlimited time to answer the questions on this test? Right?
I don't remember. Yeah, I doubt it.
So I doubt it, right? So they're saying you need to take your time when they're the one who set a time limit for your activity, and you don't have a strong relationship with time, right?
No, they said, wait, girl, hold on. Okay, it's about to get real. Let me just grab this because this is worth you hearing this because it's almost like comical at this point. All right, so let me go back to my eval. 1 second. Can I go to recent? All right. Okay. No, this is going to take me a minute. All right. Psychoeducational evals, 6 years, 6 months old. Okay. Her arithmetic functioning at this time, her highest area of academic functioning. Oh, gee, nobody went like, she's going to be an engineer. No, right? I wonder why. Could it be because wrong chromosome? Indicated well-developed arithmetic readiness skills. As a matter of fact, she was able to compute problems presented to her visually and auditorily. She could write numbers to 55 and possibly even higher because they stopped checking. They didn't even check how far I could go. They just said, well, that's the end of this test. That's crazy, but that's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. She could complete a sequence of numbers, but could not tell time, such as 7 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and so on. Some of her numbers were reversed. They literally said she can't tell time, and yet she's like blowing up our arithmetic test, basically, but we won't say it like that because it's a girl and who gives a shit, right? So, yo, I'm just going to scoot back for a second. So I've been running around, you've been running around, we've all been running around, computing, calculating, doing it the way that we do. Nobody taught me to do arithmetic like that. This is the one where it says, like, not only was Jane using complete sentences, but she was asking very philosophical questions. Like, when I was a 3-year-old, right? I was asking philosophical questions as a 3-year-old. Okay. So what does that what does that even mean? It's like, it's not my parents being proud, and it's not the researchers being like, oh, that's cute. No, that means that I was trying to create a way for me to navigate this situation that actually works for my brain. And if they're like, stop what you're doing and slowly go step 1, 2, and we'll make sure that, and then what are you going to do? Hold my legs and move me in place? Because I can't follow your steps and I get no reward.
I just remembered the whole thing with math classes and the concept of showing your work. And like me trying to explain that the way that I'm doing this math, doesn't involve me showing my work. So, like, I'm not doing it the way you taught me. I'm taking what you taught me. I'm creating a way to do it myself from that, and then I'm coming to the answers. And so, if I have to show my work, I become less able to do the work because that's not how I'm doing it.
That's not how you do it.
Right?
That's not how you're doing it.
Yeah.
Exactly. I've had the same thought.
Yeah.
That's what's so crazy. Like that. I don't even know when I had that thought, and I know I've had that thought because it's flagged as recursive. Because I'm like, well, this is important because it shares recursive properties. Okay, I'm gonna read the opposite thing, and then I'm gonna stop, and then I'm gonna see what happened to Kyle. I think he's being held hostage by my mom.
Who? Kyle? Oh, okay. There was a time in advanced placement high school math where the kids in the class, the other students, were coming to me to learn the way I was doing a certain math thing because I was doing it so much faster and easier than what they've been taught, right? And
Yep. Okay. All right. So all right, so I'm just going to go back to the step-by-step opposite action because you know how I feel about opposites, and we're just going to bang through these as best as we can. We might stop, but I'll try not to. Okay, so identify and describe your action urges. I don't know what the hell those are, so we're going to skip that. Ask wise mind, so ask your male brain, is expression or acting on this emotion effective in this situation? Is being a sensitive lady effective? No, I'm sorry. I can't. Your emotion does not fit the facts, or if acting on your emotion is not effective, ... Now it goes in. Why does it say 5? That's annoying. Why don't you have a separate, that should be a subcategory. Okay, identify opposite actions to your action urges. Opposite actions, this is, what do we say again? Platonic dualism. It's Platonic essentialism, which demands dualism because there is the ideal perfect form and then there is the destruction of it. This is dualism.
Right, so
no.
Worth quickly stopping is that opposites only exist along axes, right? If you are not describing something that is being mapped over axes, then there cannot be an opposite to it. Yeah.
Yep. And here, so identify opposite actions.
Alive and dead, these are not opposites, right? Alive is not some simple state. It is not a binary switch, right? Like we can't just we declare brain death, but what it means, what it means to be dead is a continuum, a spectrum, right? And there's so many things about you that are the same when you're alive and dead, and others that aren't, and so on and so forth, right? And alive and dead is one of the most simple things that could be opposites that clearly aren't. That's why I brought it up. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. So then step 6, and then there's step 7, and then it's over. Step 6, act opposite all the way to your action urges. I find all the way in capitals and underlined, and I think it might be bold. I'm not sure. I think it's just underlined in capitals. I find interesting because that is a motion goal. So that's weird to me. It's like, okay, so you don't want to go that direction. So why are you going backwards? Why don't you just stop? And then finally, repeat acting opposite to your action urges until your emotion changes. Like you could just look at the color blue. You could just check what's going on with your fiance who's been doing so much work and he's so great. Hi, Kyle, love you. Okay. Anyways, Imaginopolis, what a cool name. Okay, been listening to this through Jamie's phone. I'm their sibling. Hi, this is a really, good. I'm glad you like it. Support. Do you have any points you want to bring up? And then I was reading Jamie's comments and I wanted to hit them up, especially since their sibling is there. Hello.
I definitely don't need to, comment on any of that right now. So yeah, you go ahead and.
Okay, All right, I want to go through a couple things. So we can talk about cognitive dissonance more if you'd like, but there's a couple ones that I want to hit. I thought it was just yin yang, but it seems my worries about everything I say has an opposite. And no matter what I say, I'm also incorrect. The reason why it seems like you're incorrect is because you can't keep up with this real-time thing people are doing. It's not that you're the opposite. It's that they're doing something that is like extremely complex that requires their constant participation that you've never participated in. So it's like it would be like this. If somebody without sight was told to paint, then they would say, oh, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. If you interpret it as that's the opposite, no, it's just you can't see what they want you to do. So yeah, you can't do it correctly. Duh. Like, yeah, okay. And no matter what I say, I'm also incorrect and correct depending on who. And sometimes they'll say like, oh, that part's right, but then immediately it becomes wrong, right? And who I'm talking to and get rejection or acceptance from this. Yeah. And then you have no control over that. You have no, but so I would say like, I wouldn't worry about that as cognitive dissonance. I think you're accurately perceiving the situation of having a brain that is either, and this can maybe extend from autism to a bunch of different things, but basically if you're not able to do social information, it could be reasons outside of autism too, but I'm assuming that people that can't do global configurational for whatever reason are going to experience some amount of that, and it is a genuinely real thing that's happening to you, and you're not able to do the skill that would make their behavior towards you reliable and predictable. Okay, let's see. Sounds like that thing about feeling like they're just choosing to reject you for a hidden reason, as if no matter what you do, so no matter what you do, you're not doing what they want you to do. That's the issue, because you have a disability of some kind or an impairment of some kind in your brain that makes you unable to do visual, spatial play the way that they're doing it, and that play turns into turns into infrastructure. It's also having a value system of time being held against it, and you're undoing and wasting their existence. Yeah. That way, I wanted to note that was really good. Does that make you feel phony when you felt content with the reality that you discovered now? I don't mind that. If I mean, I think some people can if they aren't used to saying like, this reality isn't my reality, it's a reality that I'm testing. And then if my tests turn out to be all crap, maybe I still have become a better tester in the process, and maybe I'll have to start from scratch.
Right. I think learning to not be hit negatively by finding that out is something like it's a skill that's developed, and the way it naturally develops is when you reject a lot of realities, right? And so people who have rejected more realities because they're doing more reality testing and stuff like that are more likely to have developed the skill a lot, or to a high degree.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yes. And we shouldn't feel discouraged in doing that process, because it's just do your best with it. And maybe
it's another type of regulatory skill, right? It's another type of regulatory skill. So when we say like we as autistics are bad at self-regulation, well, we're bad at some types of self-regulation and better than others at other types, right?
Yeah, and and I wanted to add. Okay, this is what I really wanted to hit. So like, to flip the switch and play a game or something that makes you feel happy when you're about to enter a downward spiral. I would say like, if you're entering a downward spiral, one thing you could say is like, what feels as recursive as this downward spiral? Like, what feels like it's going to give me the information, and find one that is genuinely comforting, that makes you feel safer, not only happy, but safer. Say, okay, while this doesn't look great, it's possible that it can get better. So something that gives you optimism is what I'm starting to think is essential. And thank you for asking me that, because that made that solidify for me. Like, watching Mr. Rogers gives me optimism. This is why I get a sense of stability by assigning and completing a task with a timestamp as my time gets used up. And then so we can each create our own. Yes, that's for we do all create our own model of reality. And it does matter that we try to work on it with other people, but our society isn't encouraging that currently, and that's why I'm trying to foster it here. To whether someone else would choose to pay us. Yep. I don't want to just commiserate on the work thing and worth, but we're constantly seeking reassurance and quick motivation, feedback, and pace to make. It's hard being stubborn to discard previous models. Pacing won't matter if the model is wrong. Pacing won't matter. Pacing won't matter if the model is wrong. Exactly. And so we really want to, and in some ways, if you know you're doing model testing, there's probably a pacing that works for you to do the model testing as well. And that ultimately is going to look like you're making mistakes, but you're testing limits. So I also take umbrance. I have umbrage with what my evaluations were saying. And also they had typos on my evaluation, but neither here nor there. I used to ask my dad about how
Right.
things were made or ask questions about reality when I was 5. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I think I covered it all. Oh.
And also, like, society's whole model of what mistakes are and their relationship to knowing is incorrect. And so, yeah, just anything where the term mistake comes in is automatically complicated because you have like the dueling attempt to situate different versions of reality, right?
Yes.
So, like, the whole concept of tests as they exist in school just simply should not exist that way, right? You shouldn't be getting a final grade off of what you're able to get right now, right? The point of a test should be to learn what you don't know yet, highlight it by saying, "Oh, you made a mistake," and now you can learn that thing, right? You want, right? It's like in school making mistakes is bad. In learning, making mistakes is good because when they're identified, you now know where to learn, what you need to learn. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow. Okay. Well, that's some of that drive more. So is there. All right, I was trying to do stuff. I owe Kyle, he did dishes.
Yeah, Jamie, you said they're using IQ in this way too, and judging you, holding you down, sorting you with peers. So they're using IQ as a way, and within like fixed mindset compared to growth mindset, and to sort you into a hierarchy of value and worth, right? So that they can know what kind of relationship you should have to the rest of the world. So they're saying, one, this test is going to tell us your innate worth via IQ as a thing that won't change and can't change. And then based on this, we sort and treat you differently because, yeah, that's sort of the model they're using.
Yep. Man, this is a good one. Okay, let me read what Jamie was saying too. Okay. That's why we were in class waiting for them to give you the answers, but they pay more attention on what you know now and judge you on that. You don't get that far forward from that. I think it can change. It can change, yeah, but your environment has changed after they've judged. Well, so the thing about environments, right? So I think this would be the big thing. Oh, Jamie, I want to tell you this. I have a metaphor for what algorithms are right now. So the environment that we're in sucks. And it's fused in a like weird cyber way with our physical homes, which is not good for our brains because on what planet would you be like, yes, I will check the box that says random people can run through my house and scream abusive things at me and do crazy stuff. Like nobody would do that, but that's basically what we're doing to our brains as far as our brain is concerned on some level. Oh, the internet is like a giganto mansion in like the 1920s or the roaring 20s, and Great Gatsby owns this giant mansion. He's holding hostage an amazing library, an amazing research center, a hospital, a museum, a movie theater, just all kinds of beautiful, cool stuff. But in order to get there, you have to go through the infinite stupid party. So in the foyer of this mansion, Great Gatsby bum rushes you as soon as you walk in and goes, "Darling, you must meet Mr. So-and-so. Why, he's the talk of the town. He's the knees bees. He's the pajamas of cats." And he drags you over. And then you have to hear an elevator pitch for 5 minutes from this person that the algorithm is telling you you must know, you simply must. And that's what's happening to us too. So us as like autistic people, we have to have the time to work on our models, and it's okay for us to ignore Great Gatsby, basically like constantly bombarding us and assaulting us with like, you must know about this guy and this person and that person, and then we don't get to pay attention to the people we're already modeling, and so it's very frustrating. So eventually the environment has to not do that.
It's
And we
also a
have to find ways to
disguise
fix that in the
party.
meantime.
right? It's also a disguise party. So you don't know who you're talking to ever. You don't know if it's a child, if it's a drunk person, if it's a high person, if it's somebody who is in a cult, who is suicidally
and a couple
depressed,
people who
right?
are famous or not famous, but a couple of people who have their mask off and they're like content creators. So you may even find it refreshing to see the content creators, but the content creators are surrounded by people with the masquerade party. Yeah, it's a hybrid masquerade party, and some people don't have to wear the masquerade if they're popular enough or whatever. Ooh, God.
Yeah. And then I was thinking, Jane, on top of your metaphor, what we wanted to do is also just lay 5 or more copies of that exact same metaphor over top of it, so that there are now multiple different Great Gatsbys, right? Different algorithms trying to introduce you to different people at all times, right? Vying for your attention. And even after they pointed you somewhere, more of them come and try to point you other places at the same time.
Yes.
Literally, a
yes. And they say,
filled
oh,
with
don't listen to
other
Gatsby.
ads. Right.
And
so
don't listen to Gatsby.
and
I'll
there's
help you with your career, darling.
Right. They gossip about each other and point you to people gossiping about each other, right? And so so people come to distrust everything because this is the context we're living in now, right?
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And that's really good. Oh shoot, I had something I wanted to say.
And because it's become so hard to get to the library, to the hospital and everything, to actually get the real information, people within the mansion have set up camps and tried to form their own medical place, right? Their own library, and so on.
In the
And
middle
so
of the
they're
party.
in the middle of the party, and they weren't experts. They were trying to get to the library, but they said, well, fuck it, I need to make a library now. And so you stumble upon these quasi libraries, and you don't know showing up at it if it's the library or not.
Right. Because hardly anyone's ever been to the library and lived to tell the tale.
Right.
Because they're stuck in the infant super party. Yeah, and okay, what else do you want to add? Oh, the reason why this is helpful, then you can be legitimately angry at the algorithm, because you should be. Because this is not, first of all, there's people that you already know that you came to the party with, or that maybe are at the library and are waiting for you somewhere. You want to talk to people that you already know. And that or even there's some people that you want to talk to, but they're definitely not in the infinite stupid party. So you can then feel pissed off at this algorithm instead of feeling bad that you're rejecting all these people that the algorithm is introducing you to. It's not discoverability. I don't have a discoverability thing. Okay, that's not the issue. We're not discovering people, we're being introduced to people. And it's crazy to be introduced to this volume of people. It's insane.
Right.
Like, the way you think about it is that it's physically happening, and then you're like, oh, this is a nightmare. This is hell. This is hell.
Right. And everyone
would
like
place.
And now we know that autistic people would hate this, because what the guy said about the friend driving by after making eye contact, and they're like, now this is another thing to track. Like, autistic people do not want to just get given more people to contextualize and track and add to their social reality every second, right? And yet this is what scrolling through Twitch does, or Twitter does, or whatever, right?
Gatsby's telling them that the X and Y will get better.
Don't have conversations. You used to have conversations. Now I'm going to teleport you between snippets, like single sentences from one person that they said sometime, and then I'm going to have you hear what 10 different people said in response. And then what 10 different people said in response to each of those responses. Don't worry about contextualization. This is how you ought to contextualize and interact with reality and people, right?
Right, and this explains even people who are trying to do good, right? Also explains this is not very good, because the cancellation thing that people are doing is out of hand. Like, we can say that, right? That behavior is very weird. Okay, so with that behavior, favor of cancellation. Why I brought that up. It's not the best term for it, but this will make sense in a second. So if somebody's saying like, I don't want to have abusive people around, and they've noticed that abusive people get in their weird little like, you know, camp that they've built in the middle of the infinite stupid party, trying to build the thing they were trying to go to when they first used the internet. Right. So they're trying to do all that. They're trying to make sure somebody from the infinite stupid party isn't going to ruin their camp. Okay. Totally understandable. But the reason that's happening is because there's like, wait, oh shit, it was on the point that you were just saying. God damn it. Hold on. Ah, this is so much information getting processed.
So it's
Can you
happening
repeat a little bit of what you said?
It's happening because they're in the infinite stupid party, for one thing, right? And the fact that the infinite stupid party is being projected more and more over reality completely, right? It's more and more inescapable. And Great Gatsby is saying the way to exist is not to have conversations with people, not to have context, but rather for me to give you one quick sentence and then 10 other sentences in response, and then 10 more in response to each of those, and on forever.
Oh, and it's okay, because this is why it's the inner rings. Okay, this is part of it. I think there was another point I had, but this is also good. So like, if you are friends with the wrong people, right, then you won't get to be introduced to the quote unquote right people. And you think that at some point, one of these people you're going to be introduced to is going to give you the thing you really wanted, which is not to be introduced to people all the time, but to actually have a purpose.
Right.
So you think that one of these people is going to help you. And if you have the wrong people associated with you, you won't be able to arrive at your purpose. And your purpose may also be just not being shunned at the infinite party. That in and of itself, that's the rest of your life. That's pretty awesome.
Inner rings was already a problem long before social media. But now that we're in the infinite stupid party, even your inner rings are no longer manageable and are being destroyed by the Gatsby, the algorithm, right? And so you start trying to test everyone you meet for the inner rings. You start developing shibboleths, right? Codes of meaning, of ways to quickly tell you're in this inner ring and I'm not, right? And because you don't get to just see the things said by the people you entered the party with, right? It is that the algorithms are designed to show you more people, more things, to be spreading your attention and giving you more and more and more of this, right? So you are,
and we all need it because
right? But because we can't get to the library, right? The closest thing to it is to get to one of these libraries people have created, right? And those have to be protected by inner ring passcodes, or else random people will come in and burn it to the ground, because within this party, there's a bunch of serial killers and arsonists and other horribly abusive people that literally want to get the police to come shoot you because they would feel powerful. Right?
Yes. But this is why, because when you enter the infinite super party, you're handed a dance card, okay? And your dance card is how many introductions you've met. And some of these, temporary makeshift libraries, whatever they're trying to be, even though no one's ever seen the real thing. So that is your entry. Is that your dance card has to have dances from this person, this many people. Right, you have this many ticks and from this general group of the party, and then you can proceed in to go through the gilded gates to that. But the thing about that too is like there's people that have nothing on their dance card, and then they show up and they are hanging out in some creepy area of the party, being like, I don't have any dances.
Oh, right.
And then they're trying to ruin, kill, destroy the person who had the full dance card, and especially if they see you as inferior. So why are men going after women on the internet? And even I'll say something about the infantilization and autism, which this is going to loop right back into. They call us quirky because we have the thing that talking about is a positive quality of autism, and that's not supposed to happen. I'm not supposed to get dance card where people go, even if they don't want to dance with me, they'll be like smart. And then the person that's in the dark corner, he's like, that's dance card. If I kill her, I've effectively nullified her dance card.
Right, and because of the various different things we talk about, right? They're like, I should automatically have a full dance card that's always being filled more and overflowing because of who I am, because I was born male, and this person has a full dance card, and they're not even male. And so I need to devalue them and empty their dance card to feel better about
And
mine being empty, because I keep getting introduced to more and more people. It's easy to attempt to fill it, easier than ever, and still I can't fill it. Right? So they're feeling worse and worse about themselves because Great Gatsby has introduced them to thousands of people, and they still don't have anyone who wants to dance with them. And so they have different ways of devaluing the fact that these women have full dance cards. They're like, well, you just have it because you're a woman, and anyone would dance with you because of that.
Right.
That's all they need, right? So you have it so easy, blah blah blah, right? But also, to killing us, damaging us, hurting us, to invalidate us, right? To invalidate the reality that they're not getting any dances, and they should, and someone who shouldn't be getting more than them ever is getting vastly more than them.
Why? And that I really love that name, Imaginopolis. That's amazing. So that is I have an Imaginarium. It's just great. Yeah. So that's good. Okay, dance card. Yeah. So why would they say, oh, they're quirky and infantilized, blah, blah, blah? Because they need to talk about us more, that our accomplishments speak for themselves. They have to control the narrative. That's the only way that they're going to win at this game. So the reason they're obsessed with it is they're seeing there's something successful about autistic women. There's something successful, attractive about autistic girls, even when you don't bother to foster it. There's still something there that you're like, that is a good quality to have as a human being. And you may feel some admiration, but instead of admiration, you decide that that should have been yours. So then you make it seem small, you minimize it, you say that you are the storyteller and you can see it, and therefore you are amazing. Therefore, you know what it really is. She doesn't even understand her own mind, why you understand it as the observer, as the objective authority of reality. So this is them claiming it's misogyny. It's just misogyny. And now there's people that can participate in misogyny without understanding what it's coming from, because it's a social behavior that's learned and mimicked. It's a social behavior that's punished if you don't. So there's ways that this goes around. So I'm not saying that people are that conscious of it. I'm saying that we're little ants that exchange like basically our information to the next ant, to next ant, to next ant. And this is a successful way of dealing with the complexity of the human mind, but it's harmful.
That's one of the big ways that like the translation of concepts like racism, systemic racism, and misogyny into the common parlance, and it has been taking this assumption that it's an ideology that has to be deliberately subscribed to or believed, rather than just the entirety of the social context and baked in at levels so deep that even people who are actively intending to be against these things are still behaving in ways that reinforce them and execute them.
Correct.
Right?
Exactly, because they need to keep their dance cards full also.
Right. Because all the different types of social realities are founded on them, right? Yeah. So if you want to have social interactions, if you want to exist with your social needs, you have to work within the system that exists.
I was off my mic for a minute. We have to do more of that for the other system of doing anyway, where it's more of a, so system B, system A of doing, so you're either arriving or belonging. So if they're locked into arriving and they're not practicing belonging, building, brain. If they're not practicing building, then they're not going to know what we were talking about earlier, is that the process of building has its own oddities that don't look very successful in the midst of it. Like while you're mid-building, and we were talking about demolition the other day as well. So you have to allow for demolition when you're doing building, which doesn't make much sense when you're doing arriving, to demolish the road that you're walking on.
Right. So like
so
a lot
they
of
also
the
aren't good at those building skills.
Right. So a lot of the solution we're looking for, like the big solution, is about teaching people, getting people to learn and want to learn how to stop relying on the traveling as doing so much and start working with building as doing more. And then once I contextualize that, I immediately see how their entrenchment in the hierarchy and etc. of traveling is doing sets them to actively oppose what, like, receiving this change in behaviors, this new knowledge, right? They are,
Right.
it's not just that they don't want to learn this stuff, but the more they understand that someone of low hierarchical value is trying to change the way that they follow steps and maps of reality, they're going to actively resist.
Because their meaning as a person would dissolve.
Right.
If the
Because,
race is ended and we take it all down, it's gone.
right. The contents
but
of
they
who
have
they
learned something
are.
through it. Yeah.
Right. Like the contents of what they are as a description of what they do and how they do it, how they think,
Yes.
what they believe. So much of it needs to change for them to start acting even a little bit more healthy for themselves and humanity as a whole. So it, you know, it makes sense that they're going to have systems to resist that. Right.
Right. And they haven't had a good chance to question the problems with that, right? Because they'll get told they're just doing it wrong or something like that, and they need to try
right.
harder.
And you talked about like how great is it that like women and autistic people are solving this question, but like it, completely separately from the way you and I think because we're autistic, simply the fact that we're autistic, the fact that we're in the out group means that we're forced to work on this problem, right? In the same way,
Yes.
there's very, very little reason that those in the privileged space would work on the problem, right? Like
Right.
like logistically, it would be aberrant for them to work on it as hard as we do, right? It wouldn't make any sense for reality to be that way.
Yeah, and arguably, I think they can't quite understand the value. I think even many people, I think there's a limit to this, who are very deeply entrenched. If we could get them to sit down, right, and we get a couple extra, like whatever buffers they need to feel that they're not in a threat state, that they sort of trust what's going on, so that they're at least listening, and then we took our time to explain this, it would be like, okay, that's objectively a smarter way to approach being humans, like as a species on a global level. That's smarter. Now, not to say that there's not a smarter way still, but all we're competing with is the status quo.
Yeah.
And we can come out on top, absolutely, in my opinion. And well, it's not my opinion. I think that's just objective reality.
Right, it's not
because
opinion.
when you get in a fight with reality, you lose.
In your understanding, not in your opinion, right? An opinion isn't backed up. An opinion simply exists, right? But in your
strong
understanding,
assertion.
you're testing, right? Like you're right. An opinion isn't an assertion, or it's like a pseudo assertion. Let's move off opinion, but right. Like
The
point is that you have reasons and evidence that you've collected for the assertion you're making. Yeah.
Exactly. And even you talking to me right now is also that. You know, it's gone through once again, it's gone through another phase of testing, another phase of testing. So I'm feeling pretty good about this, because even early on in phases of testing, I'm like, no possibility. Oh, it's looking pretty good. Even when I'm trying to see if it's going to look bad, I'm like, actually though, it kind of looks better than I thought or was afraid it would.
And just constant refining and updating, right, as well.
Yes.
Like that's the whole point of testing, right? Testing isn't just to then discard or accept the new map of reality, but to continually recursively build it.
And to check your testing methods and then update testing methods and then get excited to retest with the testing methods. So even your testing methods rely on your past results to get a better sense of how you can do better methods. So it's, that's fun. And that's how we should get to live as people, in my opinion.
I just realized, like someone who is brought up in the current state of North American Judaism compared to someone brought up in North American Christianity, a Jewish person is more likely to be on board with this process of always checking, discarding, discussing whether the thing handed down from authority is correct or not, compared to the Christian worldview of like, this is what it is. It was literally set in stone by God and handed to us, right? Just
Right.
a realization I made that's, contextually interesting or whatever.
Mm-hmm. 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 Great. Okay. Well, this is satisfying. I'm definitely gonna pass this spot on. This is one I'm definitely saving, because I feel like even the things that we didn't hit on as much, like, let's see, what concepts would we need to, if somebody sees this. Okay. Autism is global configurational disability, because we have something that's not working in the grid cells. You can say that they're just like dysfunctional, non-responsive, who knows, compromised in some way. Okay, compromised grid cells. Place cells are still working. Place cells have an adaptive quality because everybody uses place cells recursively in this way that we're describing. Recursiveness is a property that we describe. Doing as arriving is local featural, which is the autism. So we use local featural to compensate in the same way that if you didn't have any flour for your cake, you could make a flourless chocolate cake. We are flourless chocolate cakes. We don't have global configurational. So we just have way more chocolate and eggs or whatever. And then we have, let's see here. So that's doing as building is type B, and that's doing, and that also produces motivation, and it produces imagination and episodic memories, and all this is tied to episodic memory, which you can see because grid cells and place cells are all tied into memory. There's also a couple other kinds of cells, but that will be related, so whatever. And then let's see, I'm just running over it all. So grid cells, place cells, oh yeah, and then doing as arriving is global configurational reasoning, which is social skills, and there is really good data to back that up and research, and you can even find it in popular science articles, journals, magazines, not just in esoteric places. So just wait for it. This model is more right than whatever model you have right now at the end.
Hi, Jane. So I've opened your appointment scheduler, and it says that you're free tomorrow at 3 o'clock your time for a period of time.
Yes.
Could we schedule for you to come and for 90 minutes, or theoretically up to 180 minutes, 3 hours theoretically, you and I to body double, where we each listen back to the stream today and we both put notes about it into Discord in text, right? So we won't directly speak to each other out loud. We'll body double so we're both focused on taking notes from today. Because I've noticed how dense today was with ideas that should be extracted more fully.
We might even advance this one. So technically speaking, and now it just occurred to me, I do have a friend who's a ghostwriter. I would never want to employ somebody that's just straight up ghostwriter, but he has his, or they, I don't know what their pronouns are right now, but they have their autism diagnosis because of me. And I think passing this on to them would be interesting. And this might be where we're at the stage where maybe we're at book stage. Maybe. So I might want to run that one by him, them, and Julian. So just a note on that. That may be a possibility. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So I know I personally often intend to listen back to these things and then don't.
Can you schedule it? Click the schedule, and
I'm
I will schedule.
Yeah, I'm scheduling it right now. Yeah. HCAT.
Awesome. I love this thing.
Topic. HCAT. Listen back. Body double notes.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay,
this is great. Like an additional tool for us to do things on schedules and whatnot.
Oh, I feel so good that I was right about just talking things out is valuable.
Yes, talking things out. This is, multiple person cognifacturing. And I actually just had a big conversation about this with Brightsphere about when you're cognifacturing on your own, when you're thinking things through on your own, you need to be rigorously checking yourself all the time. And so your attention is divided and you need to slow yourself down and not sprint ahead, right? But when you're talking something through with a trusted peer who's also an expert on what you're talking through, you can simply sprint ahead, confident that they are watching you and that if you're making mistakes, they'll stop you and you can address them, right? So,
yes, exactly.
In a conversation with you, I can talk, I could think things through, I can create ideas, new concepts, much faster than it can alone, and with a higher confidence level, because now you have two people looking
Right.
at it. Right?
Yes. And when I propose something to you and you're like able to affirm that works for reasons that we then talk out, my confidence level gets to jump up a lot faster.
Right. And, as a different human being with a different set of experiences, you're also like the confidence level is being affected by a wider array of data points than you can ever actually cover one by one. Right.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, woohoo.
Yeah.
And
so
this
I
wouldn't have
just
been possible without the internet and streaming and all this. Woohoo. Extra.
Right. Yeah. And like potentially I think it might be worthwhile to come up with like a specific term for the thing that two autistic people in particular do, when you and I or people like us get together and do this thing, where it's like
Yeah.
you're being spotted while cognitive factoring or whatever. And thus it enables you to do it so much faster because you have a spotter, right?
Spotter. A cognitive spotter?
Yeah. Well, we don't have to work on it right away, the term. Right?
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. But yeah, great. That's what my spotter said. Ha!
Yeah.
Okay.
And speaking of spotter, like as your minder for this, your assistant professor, we're now at the point where we have 20 minutes until you have 100% hit the end stream button. So before we even do wrap up stuff, do you want to take a moment to scan over your memory of what has been said and see if there's anything else you wanted to address quickly?
Okay. Let's see. I think I'll address the feeling of excitement. I also, I appreciate. So I have a relationship with somebody who I think uses their brains in a similar way, but not with the disability motivating it in the way it is for autism to an autistic person. And that also just says to me like this is a skill that is applied in people's lives and that is very enjoyable. If confusing at times, I can totally appreciate and respect that. It's not an all the time thing. Okay. So it's not like, oh, we're going to replace the holistic way of thinking with the autistic way of thinking. No, it's more that like I got really good at something and we need to acknowledge when autistic people have had to get really good at it because it gets silly when you don't. Because since it is a disability that is making up for something that is effectively missing, it's like this really amazing ballet dancer I know who can dance on point, do all the things that I could do. She's very well trained. And put on her makeup with her feet because she doesn't have hands. So it's like, okay,
And to sort of
this is what. So for me to say she didn't put on her makeup good is insane, and for me to say that I could do that is insane.
Right, and to contextualize this a different way that makes sense for me, and then of course to have you then spot me and make sure that the way I'm contextualizing it agrees and is equivalent to what you have said. Right, my contextualization is that we should be very confident that if we simply took the stream VOD from today and put it in front of the correct experts in the field who are hierarchically and through the system, valued and judged to be, authorities, they would listen to us and be like, oh, this is awesome and there's so much to take away from it, right?
Oh, and one of the reasons I feel anxious about any of that is something that Imaginatopia came in and said is that there's been this like really aggressive propaganda. What was the name? Imaginopolis. There's this aggressive, there's aggressive propaganda thing to say that like because you can absolutely look at me and be like quirky, autistic, whatever you need to do. Okay, so but there's people that aggressively will start pulling on the finger trap when they hear me because I'm also autistic and this is a way to dismiss how autism works in women because women are supposed to be stupid and autism correlates with the thing that we call human intelligence, which is doing us building because it's a unique thing for our species and it helps us to have all of our technology.
And in fact, there's this huge amount of both propaganda and the thing you were talking about, which you could go back to like the flying monkeys or like enforcement, right? The two different, like, there's the propaganda that changes your belief itself, but there's also an enforcement arm that is trying
Right.
to kill anyone who doesn't exist within the lines of the propaganda, right? So
Right.
on top of that danger that you worry a lot about, I've been infected with the propaganda more, where I am extremely uncomfortable and have to work hard to make any statements about an accurate statement about how I perceive the likely value and confidence level and like how widespread and useful the things that we're talking about could possibly be, because it doesn't map onto the models of reality of 99.99% of people, right? And it is goes against all these layers of propaganda, which, even as I realize the propaganda, are the foundations of my life and who I am, because I lived within it the whole time, right?
Yep.
So
Well,
yeah,
there's
so the idea,
go ahead. Well,
no, just because I don't have these pedigrees, I think that's the right term, right? I'm like, if we put this in front of the person with the pedigrees that are accepted and are also valuable, like they're real pedigrees, they would agree with us and find us valuable. The reason I say it that way is because I'm hyper aware of my lack of anything approaching a pedigree, right? There is nothing outside of the actual value of what I say to recommend me or what I say to anyone. The only value is the value within what I'm saying. Because on every level of these hierarchies and stuff, right, I have the opposite of a pedigree. Yeah.
Yep. And the fascinating thing, and we live in this currently now, is that we still live in a male supremacist culture too, right? So there's certain people who would want to say, there's certain people that even want to say that I am superior to you because we have a chromosomal difference going on in our
we haven't, it's worth highlighting, we haven't assumed chromosomal difference. I do not know what my chromosomes are, right?
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
This is just like an asterisk that got brought to my mind recently. And then I realized, wait, that should always actually be an assumption. Like, you should always hold that in mind, right? That's part of the chromosomal supremacist system, is that you should always assume chromosomes based on data that you gather,
I mean,
which is nonsense.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually,
You should use
right?
data. You should. Yeah, I know mine,
Right.
but that's only because
if
of
you
data.
don't have data, then you just have a likelihood. You don't have data.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's right.
It's worth centering the fact that the data is out. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, but the ideology is that one of us has to be able to do this because emotion, logic, yada yada.
One of us should be considered superior to the other because we're assumed to have quote unquote opposite chromosomes. Right. So whether and you either fall into a camp that considers me more valid for maleness, or you more valid for something in relation to maleness, right? You could disvalue me for multiple different reasons that are all related to the concept of males being superior. Right? Or they could theoretically, like, there's a subset of feminism that is still being actively, misogyny is working in it, or they're working against it in a way where they're like, oh, the female is more valuable because we're trying to do the opposite of what misogyny is doing. Right.
Yeah. There's that. Yep. Yeah. And also,
right.
Go ahead. Actually, I have a point on that, but you go first.
There's also just all these other lenses, like the fact that I am a quote unquote failed male, right? I don't embody any of the traits a male is supposed to. I've transitioned, right? So the fact, like, you could say that because I'm a male, it's worse that I don't have pedigrees that you also don't have, right? Yeah.
Or so here's the thing. But so this, I don't want to say like so some females, I wouldn't call them feminine. Some women, I wouldn't call this necessarily a feminist thing. I think they might call themselves that. But there's some women that will say there are biological differences and they're trying to acknowledge them, but they throw the bone to the misogynists and they say, well, how about if we say that your violence is explained by your chromosome and some other biological factors, and that it's like an inescapable reality about you. If we throw you that bone, will you work with us around some women's issues that can't be taken seriously in our society and are probably being framed inappropriately? But they throw them that bone, and then the guys go, okay, so then you agree that we're geniuses also. It's the extreme male variability hypothesis. So they're trying to rope you into that.
Right.
So what would happen potentially is if
so
you
that's a
heard
better
us talking about this,
contextualization. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, you actually have better odds of being taken seriously despite your lack of pedigree if you go hard into your lack of pedigree and are a genius, right? So,
right, but
if you seem more
don't.
extreme than me and are male, yeah, it's crazy. It's so dehumanizing. It's so deeply, profoundly dehumanizing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just something to note too. Is like I think that's also an interesting thing for us to appreciate and notice about this weird problem we're going to find ourselves in. Of like, look, this is a problem that needs to be solved. Okay, if you don't believe that it's a problem that needs to be solved, please go away immediately. Just leave. Just go. But if somebody does believe that this is a problem that needs to be solved, this issue of how humans are behaving, and that it is disjointed from reality, and that it is actually senseless torture. Okay, great. Well, here we are. We don't have the pedigrees. You have to not care.
Yeah, you have to not care, exactly.
You don't praise it, you don't do anything, you just don't care.
The aspect that I find most interesting or salient is the fact that you and I are both certain that the vast majority of people will consider one of us to be more pedigreed than the other because of chromosomes, even though you and I act in a way that is so deeply analogous to each other.
Right. And we came about it honest, right? You know, like this is more defensive of the position we're taking, that like autism produces this adaptation to the environment that's a very functional, stable adaptation, because you can be in several different versions of an environment and it still gets stronger and stronger. And as we go together, since we've worked on it in different ways, we're comparing notes, we're actually learning how to do it better. And hopefully whoever, you know, watches this and like can hang with the whole situation also is getting better. I hope there's value. If there isn't value for somebody at any point, they have to go do what's valuable to them. And I don't want them to, you know, skip out on that. But I will say this probably, I'm going to just go out and say this. This is valuable to a lot more people than people themselves would think. And that's okay. I can deal with that. That's that emotion I talked about a long time ago in this stream about the frustration of, and then the difficulty of getting things where it would be much better for them to just be. Like, this kind of senseless at a certain point, and it's gross. It's grotesque. It's watching people with machete arms trying to give each other hugs, and it's a lot. It's kind of hard to bear that after a while.
Oh yes, of course.
That's the pit of despair. That's my other concept I should mention. Oh, I got my closets figured out. Look at me go. Okay.
Yeah, one time you described humans as pain-oriented organisms, right? And so, like, the first layer of abstraction up from that is that we're goal-oriented organisms, with the goal being to reduce pain, right? So, like, the way that people act, unless they are extremely deeply malfunctioning, is always to go towards whatever they perceive as most valuable, right? That's just a fact, like a descriptive fact.
That's us too. Yep.
Right.
Yep. What's most meaningful is what I would argue too, so that it's a little easier to translate it to both type A and type B of doing.
Yeah. Right. What most recursively will help reduce pain, right?
Yep.
Yeah, value has a lot of
great.
latent meaning. Yeah, it is great.
Yeah.
And you know, some people got to do housekeeping during this, right? And like I think that's
too. It took me a little while to boot up.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, like the way HCAT has been functioning, right? When we started it out, there was a lot of focus on discussing concepts around housekeeping, but now it works much more as like a stream to listen to while doing housekeeping and you know, functionally body doubling, right?
oh, I get it. Oh my God, I get why it works. Because look. So as we're doing HCAT and we're discussing these ideas, it will be important for our environment to then be ready for the execution of these ideas. So this now becomes one thing.
Well, so no. So I got a whole nother reason for why it works, right? Is because we are torn because different parts of ourselves are able to notice different valuable things, right? And we simultaneously value getting housekeeping done and working on concepts and learning more about how to fix reality. And so by attaching a way to work on the problem cerebrally to the acts of physically improving your situation, right? You're allowing yourself to do two at once. You now get to do the thing that on its own isn't valuable enough, right?
Ooh, but look. So it's the same thing, but we can't see that it's the same thing because our society isn't giving us the recursive hit that we're having right now. That the things that we find meaningful actually are meaningful, and we have to resolve them. So the kind of cognitive factoring that we've been doing, it's why we needed the word, is not regarded as a thing you can even do. No word for it. Okay, so we're cognitive factoring. In order to cognitive factor very successfully, we need our environment, our physical environment, to be the place that we do cognitive factoring within. So probably all of our lives, it's bothered us that our laboratory sucks. And it was like, but nobody else wants to have a laboratory at home. They want maybe somewhere to rest or to do different kinds of activities that are still type A, arriving. So they want to arrive home and then arrive at the dinner table and then arrive in their wife's arms, or I don't know, whatever the hell. So we need, and this is why a room of one's own should be read, by the way. Very, very good. Very relevant to this. A room of one's own. We need a room of one's own. We need it to be built for us to do our thinking and our creating and everything in it. And we need our homes to reflect that. And we haven't had that opportunity. So the first problem that would have arrived on our inbox, in our inboxes as babies, as children, is that like this environment is not the one that I'm able to do my work in. And it's constant. I always felt like that. Now it makes sense. I always felt like, man, I'm not making as much progress as I should because of this house. And then if you say that to people, like, oh, is it because it makes you feel ashamed, or because you can't have friends over, or you can't? No, because I need my environment to facilitate the ongoing work that I am doing that is meaningful. The environment has to acknowledge it as meaningful and be the place that I do the meaningful work meaningfully.
We're working with the metaphor of like we're trying to solve the zombie virus. If you watch a zombie movie, the guy who's trying to solve it their bed is in their lab because they're just in a lab because it's so important that they solve it. It doesn't make sense for them to have all this other space for doing other things. Right? We go to sleep thinking about the problem. We wake up thinking about it. We need our lab equipment next to us at all times, right? And the reason when I come to Housekeep-a-thon, invariably I sit at my computer and I just cognitive factor and work on concepts with whoever's here is because that is the most important way for me to eventually improve the room that I'm in, right? I need to understand what's wrong with our tools more deeply so that I could figure out what would even be a correct solution. Because every time I start to iterate a new prototype of a solution to what's wrong with my laboratory, I realize that it is still too close to the types of tools that I was presented as being useful tools, right?
Yes. And that makes sense that you wouldn't want to work on that kind of work because yep. I get it. I'll have to ponder on that a little bit more because I think that's just, that's good. Cool. Well, this was the best HCAT of the year, and it's only the 28th of January.
Yes.
Or maybe the best HCAT. Well, I mean, they're cumulative. How can you do that? But meaning increases
They
over
are
time because maybe
cumulative.
time is just meaning increasing.
Right.
Oh,
right.
man.
In fact,
I love being weird.
It would be freaking amazing and a great sign, and we should in fact predict that, every HCAT on average is better than the ones before them as we are improving our working models of reality and implementing them and changing our environments, right?
Yep. I am so happy right now. I just went through a bunch of crap and stress. Well, yeah, no, I went through a very stressful state, and then Kyle is here, and everything's cool, and we're getting ready for the next stage of our stuff and building together. And
Yeah.
yes.
And it's time to end stream.
All right, it's time to end stream, everyone. I won't be here tomorrow because Kyle is still in town, and I just think probably not. There's a tiny percentage chance I might, but I probably won't because I need quality time because I probably won't get to see him till he moves. So I think I'm just going to call him and say no. And I will be back on Tuesday in the morning, and I've decided 8:30 works better than 8. So 8:30 a.m. to 10 is morning cognitive factoring, and we still don't 100% know what that is, and it doesn't matter. And I'm gonna get this one. This VOD is super important, and maybe this might actually be the start of the book.
Right, and I already sent you a request to schedule you and I listening over this VOD tomorrow together.
Perfect.
Right?
And I will confirm that and have it scheduled. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, as per usual, I don't see how rating makes any sense, and it's not happening. I hope everybody who does listen to this or bothers with it has a wonderful day. Thank you for doing that. If you're like, wow, this was really weird and interesting, what the heck is going on? Dope. If this is unlike anything you've ever heard before, I just want you to ask why. Just like do that until you have an interesting answer. And then when you have that interesting answer, ask why again, and just do that for a while. And if all goes well, I'll see you back here someday. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah.
All right, folks, I'm gonna pop right off because I gotta go hang out with the person I love who did dishes, and I don't know. Okay, goodbye.